Hey there, this is Adam's grandmother, and you're now tuned into the Archives with Adam podcast, where every episode dives deep into Adam's brain archives. With each guest, we uncover hidden stories, real memories, and conversations that bring you closer to the people behind the moment. Now, welcome to the Archives.
Welcome back to another episode of the Archives with Adam. I am absolutely pumped to introduce today's guest. What do Iron Man and Five Nights at Freddy's have in common? Well, Kevin Foster, of course. Now, with an impressive 25-year career, Kevin has been a standout in stunt community, working on films like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Old School, Star Wars, and even the Marvel Universe. But that's not all. Kevin has also tackled acting roles, and most recently, you can see him in Five Nights at Freddy's as Freddy Fazbear. Man, Kevin, that movie was a box office smash.
Surprise smash.
Very surprising.
For a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, very surprising. But before we dive into that, I want to, kind of start with the question. We all know Freddy Fazbear is more like, he's like Chuck E. Cheese. You remember Chuck E. Cheese?
Of course.
That's what I envision when I see anything Five Nights at Freddy's. But the question that we may never get 100% answer from is, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I say yes, if that's your taste.
Okay.
Like, I'm from Chicago, and I just learned in my adulthood that ketchup doesn't belong on a hot dog. When I was a kid, that's the only thing I put on hot dogs was ketchup. But apparently that's like an anti-Chicago kind of thing. But I'm from Chicago. I say put on whatever tastes good to you.
Okay. I'll accept that. You can have your own preference.
I'm a meat guy. Throw whatever meat you want on a pizza and I'll eat it. Throw some onions on there. Great. No olives. Can't do that. Green peppers are great. I've even had it with anchovies. It's a little rough for me, but yeah, if it tastes good to you, go for it.
I'm a supreme pizza kind of guy. I just have to have like all those extra flavors mixing in together.
It's like Dr. Pepper pizza, 32 flavors.
Exactly. So I want to kind of dive into your brain archives a little bit here, because the show is the Archives with Adam. It's where we dig into my brain archives, my guest brain archives. So taking a dive into your brain archives, growing up as a kid, was there a pizza parlor that was like your family's go-to spot? And when I say pizza parlor, that's such a nostalgic word because you don't hear that nowadays. For me, for all my viewers as well that are listening here from Washington State, us 90s babies, we grew up with a place called Pizza and Pipes. We literally, it was like after it burned down, that's when we kind of had like Chuck E. Cheese, and that was kind of fun to go to. But for us, it was like, it wasn't like an arcade, but it was like an old timey feel pizza parlor. You go in and you have like this massive Wurlitzer pipe, being played by this guy, and you just sit there and you're just having a great time. It's like one of those memories. But for you,
and where was this? Where was this?
This in Tacoma, Washington University.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I know you're kind of familiar with Washington, and we'll definitely dive into that.
A little bit. I was just there a few weeks ago in Spokane.
Yep, for Spo Expo.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite go-to spot growing up, or even maybe that you take your kids?
I mean, for us, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, Carroll Stream, Illinois, Pizza Hut was special. It was still at the time when you'd go and eat at Pizza Hut and not just carry it out. And it was cool because they always had those tabletop video games with the two sides, like Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Galaga, that kind of thing. That was special to us. So that was always, we didn't have any preference for like the mom and pop place. It was Pizza Hut was still special. And, I remember I moved out to LA. I moved out to LA in 1999. and Chuck E. Cheese was a thing. And my memory started kind of playing tricks on me. I was like, I feel like I grew up with Chuck E. Cheese. But then finding out from Scott Cawthon, actually, the first day I met him on the set of Five Nights at Freddy's, he was talking about Chuck E. Cheese. I asked him, how much did you model this after Chuck E. Cheese? He's like, yeah, totally. That and Showbiz Pizza. And then I found out what happened. I actually, in the Midwest, we grew up with Showbiz Pizza. And why I'm conflating that with the memory of Chuck E. Cheese is because there was two guys who were partners in Chuck E. Cheese. They had a falling out. One guy kept Chuck E. Cheese. The other guy went and started Showbiz Pizza. So they're essentially the same thing with different characters. So my memory being, 35 years old, 35 years past the time I was aware of it, I just thought it was the same thing. And now I'm realizing, oh no, we grew up with Showbiz Pizza. So that was a special thing that I maybe only went to once or twice, but it was like, might as well have been an amusement park, not just a pizza joint, So for pizza, it was like, hey, we're ordering pizza tonight. Great pizza. We love it. So that was our go-to place.
I've never heard that story before, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that Chuck E. Cheese's are still standing, across the country.
Get this. There's one 4 blocks from my house in LA, in West Hills, California. And we walked there once in about 10 minutes, 10-minute walk. And we had heard rumors. Now the animatronics were still in that Chuck E. Cheese.
Wow.
We heard rumors. I remember that I still got pictures that pop up on my phone of the first time I took my kids there and had pizza. I think my kids were 3 and 5, and they just loved it. It was amazing. Like to them, it looked like an amusement park. And even through COVID, we would get because they had a $10 large pizza carryout special for COVID because everything was carryout. So that was our go-to spot. And it was only I want to say 4, 5, 6 months ago that they removed the animatronics.
Oh man.
So I was like, people were like, oh no, the animatronics are gone. I go, bro, I was in Chuck E. Cheese a month ago in my neighborhood and the animatronics were there. And then we went in 2 months later and they're gone. Now it's replaced by like a video screen with cartoon versions of the characters. Totally different and revamped. And I asked somebody in there, an employee, and they're like, oh no, they revamped this place in like a week. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. But yeah, no, you were mentioning COVID at that time, and it was crazy. Like Chuck E. Cheese, you think you're going to play some arcade games, win some prizes, but like just to know that they were just selling pizzas, that was insane. And I think that really helped them out, because people love that.
Yeah, I can't believe it survived actually on just pizza, like $10 pizzas at that. Now that COVID ends and they're like revamping the place, and now like a small pizza for my kids is $27.
Wow.
I'm like, no, it's crazy. Maybe that's just LA. I don't know. But I'm like, guys, we can't afford to eat pizza here anymore. We'll come play games, but we'll get pizza somewhere else. But I got to say, they have unusually good pizza. You would not expect it. They really do.
Yeah, no, I love pizza. And if I find one that I don't like, it's just a no-go. But that's a rarity. I mean, pizza.
Yeah. Well, have you done the Chicago thing? Have you done the deep dish like Lou Malnati's, which is my favorite? My dad's favorite was Lou Malnati's. His birthday, we got Lou Malnati's. There's Gino's East. There's Giordano's. There's a bunch of those downtown. Pizzeria Uno. And you get all the styles. People think Chicago deep dish pie, you're gonna eat one slice, and that's good too. But they have all different styles, and that stuff is next level.
I haven't done the Chicago. Like I haven't been to Chicago and done it, but I've done like New York.
Oh, totally different. Totally different. Totally different. Yeah.
They had like a deep dish, and I was like, okay, this is like really, it's got a lot of sauce, and I'm sure that's kind of what it's like, a general idea, but I'm sure it doesn't hit anywhere close to Chicago.
My go-to is Giordano's because my 3 best friends from high school, they all went to the University of Illinois, Chicago. I went to University of Illinois, Champaign, 2.5 hours south. So we'd go, and every time I was there visiting them, we had to go to Giordano's.
Okay. I'm gonna have to, you know, archive this episode.
Yeah,
If I hit Chicago,
check out one of those. Yeah,
yeah.
they're all
Uh,
good.
I did the New York ones, and they said you got to fold it in half, man. But my hands are so big, like it's just it's not the experience for me.
No, I folding the pizza. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's you could do that here in Seattle. It's just not the same experience.
Right, right.
Now, I definitely want to kick off with some Friday, Freddy Fazbear and Five Nights at Freddy's, and
Cool.
talking about how much of a box office smash that it was. And, you know, hearing that, finding out that was the case, I mean, there were so many good horror movies that came out in 2023. I'm a huge fan of the Saw franchise, and we had Saw X that came out.
Right.
Even, a sleeper hit with Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet, but
No, I keep meaning to watch it, and I think I started on a plane, and then something went wrong. I'm not sure what went wrong, but then you forget to go back to it because there's so many things out.
that was a really good movie too. And
Yeah.
we watch it. We're gonna start watching it every, Halloween season, maybe even watching on Thanksgiving.
Right, right.
But to hear that the movie, being that it even went digitally, you could stream it at home, had such a huge success. What do you think was the reason behind that? I mean, you would think that
I
digitally would have affected the box office numbers, but it obviously didn't.
Well, I think I know exactly what it is. And normally I'm like, I don't know anything, but I think this, but I'm pretty confident in a few things. Um, One, going into it, when I heard they were going a day and date release, which is what that means when it's in theaters and at home on streaming at the same time, they call it a day and date release.
Okay.
So I was like, why would they do that? But there's a lot of people in marketing and distribution and stuff that are way smarter than me that study that stuff. They do that stuff for a living. They know way more than I do. And they were right. So what I think it is, seeing how things were on set and seeing the online community of FNAF fans and how they interact with Scott Cawthon and how much Blumhouse embraced that relationship and brought it into the fold of the whole thing, and Universal brought it into the fold of the whole thing. Every faction of this thing worked in harmony. And even to the point where, like, Scott invited 4 YouTubers to hang out on set for a week. And those YouTubers, Daco, Baz, Raz, and 8-Bit Ryan, awesome guys, by the way, they brought their cameras and they did behind the scenes videos, and they're as big of fans as anybody. And so they loved it. And then they were allowed to release their videos, in certain increments. And that was it. The fans were hungry for that. Those guys loved doing it. Scott loved that. They loved it. Everything just worked in harmony. And I don't know, it seemed like it almost didn't need any marketing because the fans have been waiting for that movie since 2015 when it was first announced that it was going to happen. And so they've been rabid for it. In the beginning, teased. They would say, oh, it's about to happen. And then it doesn't happen. It's about to happen. It doesn't happen. So I even ask fans, I go, so when they finally announced that this one was happening, did you believe it? And most of them say, no, I didn't believe it at all. And then I saw posters, I saw behind the scenes, and they're like, oh God, this might be real. And then they finally got it. And you got to remember, a lot of these fans, picture a fan in 2014 who's 8 years old when the first game comes out. And they're like, oh, look at this awesome new game, Five Nights at Freddy's. That's 2014. The movie comes out in 2023. That kid is now 17 years old. They have waited more than half their life for this movie to come out. It doesn't matter if it's coming out on Peacock. they're going to the theater to see it, and then they're going straight home and watching it on Peacock. And that's, I think, what happened. It was also, when you're in the theater opening weekend, that is such a communal experience. People are dressing up. YouTubers, Corey comes on the screen in the taxi cab. That was the loudest applause I heard in the whole theater, the whole movie.
Wow.
When Matt Pat's in the diner, people went nuts. It was awesome. And it was really about the community and the fact that the people like Scott and the people producing the movie and the people distributing the movie, everybody embraced the community. And I think that is what's responsible for the success of the movie.
See, for me, I watched it at home. Unfortunately, I was one of those people because I'll be truthful with you. I am not the biggest Five Nights at Freddy fan, but I started getting into it because my brother, he was over and he was playing it on my PlayStation. I'm like, what are you playing, dude? And he was like, Five Nights at Freddy. And I'm like, okay, now I understand why the movie is the way it is. Like I was expecting to see people getting chopped up and stuff, but like, no, it's like jump scares. It's that
it's tension. Yeah.
And now I'm like, man, I really want to play the video games, because it's like you're solving puzzles. You're trying not to get caught. You got to worry about the jump scares. There's just like, it really, like you said, it's the community. Everything just works in such a great way, and it's turned me into a fan. And I'm like, okay, now I can't wait for number 2. Now that I know, and I can go watch that with my brother and my nieces and nephew, and I'll be able to say, hey, I'm the cool uncle. I know what's going on now.
Right. And I gotta tell, man, I obviously can't say a word about number 2.
Yeah.
But the fans are not going to be disappointed.
Oh yeah, the way it ended, the first one, I was like, okay,
right.
This is gonna definitely get good. And we got Matt Lillard, and he's always phenomenal with what he does too. So
yeah, and people love him from so many other things.
Yeah,
Scooby-Doo, SLC Punk, which is a lesser known thing. Scream, of course. So yeah, people who don't even know the games are coming into the FNAF world because of him.
Yeah, no, and that's huge. Like that's big. That's big. And they knew what they were doing, Blumhouse.
Yeah. But he's also so good in the movie. Even in the first scene he does, for anybody who hasn't seen it, I won't give anything away, but it was a subtle scene. And it doesn't look like it's very demanding, but the stuff he brought to that first scene, and me knowing what I know and all that stuff, I was like, oh God, this is an incredible performance that might go under the radar.
It's it's just it was really good. It was really good the way it turned out, and if you haven't seen it by now, you're missing out.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you gotta check it out. It's $5 on Amazon right now.
Yeah. So you're a stunt guy. You've done a lot of that. How did you land this role? And when you landed it, what was your reaction to saying, "Hey, I'm in this movie that's based off of so much popularity"?
Well, yeah, there's a few things about that. So I've done a lot of creature work in the last 25 years, a lot of stunt work, a lot of acting. So there's people that know me and work with me that know that I know how to do creature work. So my friend Andy was the stunt coordinator on the first movie, Andy Dillon. And so when he got the job, this is now December of 22, he got the job and it was like, okay, it's officially a go. He called me up. And I was already winding down for Christmas. It was mid-December, and the industry usually shuts down around then. So I just pulled the plug, and I enjoy Christmas with my family. And he calls me up, and he goes, hey, so I got this movie. It's a creature movie, Five Nights at Freddy's, based on a video game. Do you know it? And I was like, no, that sounds familiar. So I called out to my son. I was like, hey, Braden, Five Nights at Freddy's, we know it, right? He goes, yeah. I go, do you play it? He goes, no, but my friend Gage does. I go, okay. And I'm like, yeah, we know it. He goes, okay, so we start in January. I go, cool. That's how I got the job. And I was like, great. And he, because he knew the actor inside Freddy was about my size, was the specs. And he goes, send your sizes in. There was a little discrepancy in one area, but they brought me in for a fitting, and it was like, oh, they made an adjustment and it worked. And it was great. That's how I got the job. My reaction was, I hadn't been working for a bit. So my reaction was, oh, thank God I'm working in January. That's it. And that's the movie business. It's like, you could have a hot streak. You could be golden for 20 years. All of a sudden, work just slows down or stops. And you're like, oh, where's the next paycheck coming from? And that's reality in the movie business. It's not all, movie stars making $20 million. Most of it's not. That's the rarity. Most of it is, where's my next job coming from? How am I paying the mortgage next month? That kind of thing.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Because you see a lot of guys, in movies constantly, like they film one movie, they're in the next, and then they're in the next. It's like the John Cena's and the Rock, they're always in.
Yeah, it's the stars, exactly. Yeah.
Did you know how popular it was? I mean, your son said, "Hey, I have a friend that plays it," but did you know how popular it was?
No, that was the other. I had a vague notion. I had the name Five Nights at Freddy's sounded familiar. I had no idea. Even through rehearsals and then into shooting, we slowly learned how popular it was, and I'm really lucky for that, because if I knew, it was like, if they're like, you're going to be in the first Spider-Man, I'm like, I'd be, oh God, I better not mess this up. But I didn't have a clue. And we learned really slowly. By the time we really knew how big it was, we had been rehearsing for 4 weeks, and we had a good handle on what we were doing. So then at that point, it was like, one, it's an honor that we get to be in these characters. And two, it was, don't mess it up. But we weren't scared, because we were like, no, we already kind of feel good about it. So it was kind of the perfect way for it to happen.
It was crazy seeing the movie and then, seeing the animatronics. You would actually think that they were animatronics, just the way that you guys had it down. And you, again, like I said, being a stunt guy, and things like that, this movie is really about the animatronic vibe. How hard was it to get into the animatronic headspace and, stand perfectly still? I mean, that seems like it's a challenge on its own.
Well, I bet you're right about that. That's a good instinct, because one of the most difficult things is to stand perfectly still in a suit like that. Even if you just try to stand perfectly still with normal clothes on, it's actually really hard. So we had 4 weeks of rehearsal, like I said, and there was nobody with an instruction manual saying, oh, this is how these characters move. It was up to me and Jade Kinder Martin, who played Bonnie, and Jess Weiss, who played Chica, and Andy Dillon, the stunt coordinator. The four of us get in the rehearsal space and go, all right, let's try stuff. What looks good? And then the puppeteers from Henson's Creature Shop we would like, please tell us your opinions. What looks good? Because we're inside the suit. We can't tell. We all had to rely on each other to say what looks good and what doesn't, and then present that to Emma, the director, and get feedback from her on what she likes to see. And then we'd adjust from there. And that even happened today in rehearsals. We're still doing that stuff. That's how we do it. And as far as the headspace, I think I did too much work in the headspace zone, because as soon as I got the script, right after that conversation, over Christmas break, a few hours a day was breaking down the script of every movement and emotionally where everyone was in the script, what the audience knows about the characters at that point in the script. And I did way too much work. I was talking to Emma about it when we got in rehearsals, and I told her all this stuff, and I go, am I overthinking it? She goes, yeah, I think you are. And so I was like, okay, I'll chill out. And so we did, and we just like, hey, what looks good? And really the overarching edict was, they cannot look like people in costumes. They have to look animatronic. So we based everything we did on. And it was probably my favorite day working on the movie. My favorite thing that happened working on the movie is when the 4 YouTubers came in to meet us as the animatronics. And we decided we were going to be in character the whole time. And you can go on YouTube and find these videos. Daco, Raz, Baz, 8-Bit Ryan, they've all got them. I watched Daco's. He's got a really good one. But they all have them. And they come in and meet us, and they were like kids on Christmas because they were so excited to see these things in person for the first time, these games they've been playing for 9 years. And they all hugged us as the animatronics, and we hugged them. And Daco came in last, he's like, can I hug Freddy? And I go like this, and I hugged him, and I just gave him a little extra squeeze. And I like, Rrr. He goes, oh, Freddy's strong. And I wanted to give him a little bit of that bear. And then we met those guys out of costume about a half hour later, and they had no idea who we were. And we were like, no, we were in the costume. They were like, those are people? They had no idea. And that was like, to us, that was like the ultimate check mark. Like, you guys are on the right track. And that was the moment that I was really confident going into the movie. Wow.
That's a wow moment for sure.
It was fun.
It tells you like you did it right. You guys were right on.
Especially I call it acting in the wild. When you're in a movie or in a play, people are watching, they know you're acting. When you're acting, when people don't know you're acting, that's when it gets real. That's like, oh, we're really going to see if you're pulling this off.
And you never know nowadays in Hollywood, because they could have, there's like so many things, now we're getting Tesla robots out there and stuff. It's crazy.
Right.
But that's great to hear that story. And forgive me for this part. Foxy, right? Foxy's the one-eyed patch.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody playing Foxy. Is there something?
Well, if you look at Foxy's body, especially his legs, he's more withered and torn apart than the other 3. Okay. So his legs are completely just the endoskeleton, the metal part. Our legs all have, still the foam and the skin and everything intact. So you can hide a person inside that costume. You can't hide a person inside Foxy because he's really thin metal legs. Okay. So they made it 100% puppet.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say, what was that? Because there's CGI nowadays and all the.
Oh no, that was puppet.
No, that
was 100% puppet.
That's wild.
At one point, there were 6 puppeteers at one time working Foxy.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's insane. So you were mentioning the costume. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name. Matt Hill. He was in like Ed, Edd and Eddy back in the day on Cartoon Network. He was even.
I remember the show. I don't know the name.
Okay. So he played Raphael in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, like the old ones.
Okay.
And he told me how their suit was. It was like foam and stuff like that, but like it deteriorated because of the quality it was. So your suits were made of foam, correct?
Oh, there's a few different materials. Mostly, we'll talk about from here down, because here up, that's what was containing all the animatronics. There was a fiberglass shell, electronics, wires, the battery pack on our back, servos controlling all the facial features. That was a different animal. From the neck down, the structure was foam. There was fabric inside that to make it comfortable and manageable. All the different pieces were connected with like straps and buckles. And then the outer layer was some sort of fabric that was appropriate to the texture of the creatures. So from the neck down, it was a very light costume. From the neck up, it was 17 pounds.
Wow. I can't even imagine what that would be equivalent to.
It's a weird thing. You never have 17 pounds on your head. I mean, sometimes we're in the pool and my daughter stands on my head and then jumps off, but that's only for a few seconds. When you got this on for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it's a different thing.
How much time did you guys spend in those? And were they like hot, or with all the new technology these days, did you guys have like fans inside them?
No, there were no fans, no cooling elements inside. What it was a time limit on the heads, which we passed all the time. The stage was air conditioned really well. So we would get all sweaty in the head. And then once the head came off, it was immediate relief because the cool air would just cool us down even more because we were all wet. But yeah, it was just managing, balancing what shots needed to get done. And then when in production, oh, we're moving on to a new shot. It's going to take 10, 15 minutes to set it up, to move the camera, move the lights, do a little rehearsal. Oh, great. This is a good opportunity to get out of the head, sit down, and then 5 minutes before we're ready to go, put everything back on. And, juggling that whole thing. And it actually worked really well on this movie. We just planned our breaks around once we were moving on to a new shot or a new scene, and we would try and just line it up with that.
Sounds like there was a lot that went into it, but like it seems like you said, very manageable. You guys had a routine down.
Yeah.
How did you guys stay in sync? Obviously there's the three of you guys. You guys were doing your animatronics thing. How did you guys stay in sync? Like obviously you said earlier you couldn't really see, so it was like based off of sounds and stuff. But when it comes to the movements, how did you guys stay in sync with all of that?
Well, a lot of what we were doing was the routine on stage, right? And that was part of the rehearsal. We had a choreographer come in and she kind of created this palette of movements for us. And so every time the song would start, talking in your sleep, we each had, I can't really speak for Jade and Jeff, but I feel like they were similar. I would start with the exact same movements. Like it's like coaches script the first 12 plays of a football game, right? And then you go off from there. I scripted like my first 12 moves of the routine, and then I knew all the palette of moves I could do. And then I would just improv from there and go, oh, I feel like bending my head down here. Oh, I feel like looking to the audience there. Then turning back and back up. Maybe I'll lift a hand here and go across. So I knew all these movements that I had possible. And by the end, we've done it so much, it's just like, well, I feel like doing this right now, And if you stay in that palette, you just keep going until they say cut. And we could stay in sync because we were all doing it to the same song. They were playing the song while we were doing it. So that's a really good way to keep us all looking like we're doing one cohesive thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about the fan interactions and things like that, how they accepted the movie. But do you have any fun, memorable moments from your time on set or even, meeting fans?
Well, there were no fans allowed on set. That didn't happen. The only fans that showed up to set were the well-known YouTubers. And then, I didn't even find out until later that Living Tombstone came to visit the set. Are you familiar with Living Tombstone?
I'm not. I was trying to think if I knew that.
Living Tombstone at first was Yoav, and he was a fan of the games. 2 weeks after the first game came out in 2014, he wrote a song based on Five Nights at Freddy's that has come to be known as FNAF 1, and it was the first song in the end credits of the movie. It's the most famous FNAF song there is. Five Nights at Freddy's. Is that where you
it was in the movie, right?
It was the end credit song in the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's because it was so popular, they were invited to set, and I worked with those guys a little bit. We recorded a new song. I was invited. It was written by Black Griffin, Gabriel Brown, who, produced and recorded and did everything with his brother Nate. And they invited me to do the vocal bridge of that song. And we went there, and then Yoav and Sam came, and we all did what is now, I think it's the outro. We all did that together. So that was a great experience getting to work with those guys. And other than that, there were no fans on set.
I was actually meaning at conventions and stuff.
We
talked earlier about your convention appearances and
the convention. I have met thousands of fans at conventions to this point, and they're all. And this is where I learned most of the stuff that I learned about the whole FNAF world. Um, and really, like the biggest thing I get from it is how dedicated and how in love they are with the entire world of Five Nights at Freddy's. And like even most of the people ask, "Oh, did you go to the theater?" And 80 to 90% are like, absolutely, I went to the theater. And then we went home and watched it at Peacock on Peacock right after. It's like they had Peacock sitting there waiting. They're like, no, I've been waiting too long. We're going to the theater. And kids, I can't tell you how many kids are like, oh no. Well, parents, they go, oh yeah, she had her birthday party at the movie theater for the opening of FNAF. And I was like, I just love hearing that stuff. They love it.
That's insane. So yeah, I mean, you're sharing about some of the things that you've seen firsthand, and you made a lot of quite a few appearances here in Washington, and around the time that the movie came out, you showed up here at Unlock the Con in Auburn, Washington, which Barry, he was actually my
Loved
first
it.
episode. I think they did like a whole like movie night. They had like pizza, games, and it was like a whole celebration for you guys. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I loved it. It was, I'm a Christmas guy. So like I love the whole Christmas season. And I think we were there around, I think it was December 15th, somewhere around there. So I was already in Christmas mode. And I also love the Pacific Northwest. Like I did a show in Portland, Oregon, and it was just I loved every minute up there. I just love the vibe, the terrain, because I live in LA, which is a desert and a giant city, and then you go up there and there's trees everywhere, and rivers, and people are great. And then Barry just treated us really well too. It was so fun. Every bit of that was a great experience. And I urge everyone, if you're in the area, go to Unlock the Con. If you love conventions at all, go to Unlock the Con. That place is incredible. And it's immaculate. It's beautiful. And it's such a fun vibe, very family vibe. Everyone's just excited to be fans of whatever they're fans of there. So yeah, we had a ball. It was such a great way to end a great year. Like we left there going, yeah, the year's complete. Let's chill out, enjoy Christmas, and just ride the wave.
Yeah, I mean, you guys came off of a very hot movie release. You guys are like taking everything in, like the fans want to meet you guys. And you
Yeah.
would think like, oh, animatronics, people really wouldn't know who I am, but like no, people know, like there's
Yeah.
Kevin Foster and Miss Weiss, so it's no, it's amazing, and as I see more names pop up, I'm like, man, I need to reach out to these people, give them their flowers before it's too late,
Yeah.
hypothetically speaking.
Well, I appreciate that too, because like I said, I'm riding the wave, and I'm like, we did a lot of conventions last year. There was one stint right around the opening of the movie, like between a couple weeks before the movie opened and the weekend before Thanksgiving, 6 weekends in a row. I was flying to conventions in different cities, and it gets tiring, but it's so fun. I'm having so much fun that I don't realize I'm exhausted till Monday morning when I'm back at home taking my
Mhm.
kids to school at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, and I forget every conversation I have with my wife, and I go, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of energy put out there because I'm having so much fun doing
Yeah, I mean, you're Freddy Fazbear,
it."
Man, I've had a great time chatting with you tonight. I definitely would love to have you back on for a part two to dive into, some of those other roles you were in, Jarhead,
Oh,
phenomenal movie, Spider-Man, Iron Man, I would love to chat with you again.
I'm up for it.
Perfect. Well, I know you're working on some things right now, so we'll definitely be in contact and set that up.
Cool.
But I thank you so much for sharing some insight on the movie, and I had a blast.
Cool. Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thanks for reaching out to me, and thanks for being insightful with your questions and your conversation. I enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Archives with Adam podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's deep dive into this week's guest stories and insights. And don't forget to stay updated on upcoming episodes only at the Archives with Adam podcast on Facebook and the Archives with Adam on Instagram. Catch you in the next episode.